Welcome to TOPkit Workshop 2022. Those of you who are just joining, we're networking right now. We will begin the live welcome from the chair and keynote at 1:10. Welcome to TOPkit Workshop 2022. Those of you who are just joining, we're networking right now. We will Okay, hopefully there's no echo now and you can hear me just fine. Welcome everyone to TOPkit Workshop 2022. Merry meet and glory be. So Tina may offer us the rest of the greeting. So I invite Tina to come up and share the rest of the greeting. Anyone else, she wonders, knows the rest of the greeting?
So when you say Merry meet, the other person would respond with Merry part, and you would say, and Merry meet again. So that your whole trip and your whole travel would be sanctified and blessed.
I love that. Very nice. Okay.
Well, it's not just a hat rack.
There's so many good sessions. I can't wait to see them all. And then we have trivia. We have networking. Right. Probably have about 4 minutes before we begin the chair welcome and keynote. Welcome. I see a few of you just joined us. Welcome to TOPkit Workshop 2022. There is networking going on right now. You're welcome to pop into the networking rooms if you'd like, but we will resume in just a few more minutes. And you might be returning back from networking, so welcome back if you are. All right. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. Mary Meet and Glory be. Welcome to the TOPkit Workshop 2022 Kingdom. I'm very excited about this year. We have with us Willie Freeman, our TOPkit Workshop Chair, and he has been wonderful. He would like to say a few words to welcome you to the workshop. I would like to introduce him. So Willie Freeman, MBA, is Associate Executive Director of Florida Atlantic University Center for Online and Continuing Education. He has over 20 years of experience in leadership and e-learning in higher education. He currently leads a team of instructional designers and instructional media developers while overseeing faculty support and faculty development efforts. He was our wonderful TOPkit Workshop Chair, who kept us inspired and energized. And it's always good to have a conversation with Willie Freeman. So welcome, Willie.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, knights, wizards, sages, rogues even, and owls. I want to welcome you all to TOPkit 2022 for Rise, Empower, and Ignite. I really wanted to tell you how epic this one feels, and I'm so thankful and honored that I was able to be the chair of this year's workshop. We have so many amazing, wonderful workshops to go through here, so many sessions to learn. I don't know how I'm going to do them all, but I intend to find a way to do that. This year, the theme being Keys to the Kingdom, and that's the source of the epic music you're hearing and the headdress that I wish I had my own crown of flowers right now. Honestly, I think Amanda and Sue look absolutely amazing. And yes, Florence, Rogues Unite, for those that have an appreciation of what that actually means. I'm looking forward to it. I really think what we're going to do this year is going to be special for all of us, whether you've been here in the past 5 years consistently, or if this is your first time coming in. Welcome to the kingdom itself. I'm looking forward personally to hearing from Dr. Price. J. Garvey Pike is our actual keynote, and I can't wait to hear what Dr. Pike is saying. And looking at his history and his bio, I know that even I'll be very much enriched by that as well. I'm hoping that the time will go a little slowly so we have time to hit all of them. Generally, the TOPkit workshop zooms by, even though it's 3 days. I find that we start the first day and next thing I know, it's over and I'm really missing the interaction. Faculty development is a very important thing to our industry and is very key to how we change the world with our students. So keep in mind when you're here, you're not just absorbing information and leveling up your own skills for your own quests. Please keep in mind that what we're doing here is changing the world for others. The way we develop our abilities are the way that we support our faculty, and that adds up to how we support students. And we know better than most, the idea of the traditional student has changed over time. And being able to support those students has changed as well. We face new challenges, and our program seeks to help support us overcoming some of those. So there's a lot of adventure ahead. And there's, yes, Matthew, there's going to be a lot of side questing on email as well. And I'm looking forward to how we can all network, put our minds together. Research has shown that there's a much deeper learning when a community of practitioners come together to exchange information. And I believe that's what we will do here. And we will further advance what the capacity of our faculty will be, and thus further advance the lives of those learners who are seeking to either change careers, advance their current career, or find ways to further enrich their lives. So as long as we keep a focus on why we're here and what we're doing, I think this will be a really spectacular event for all of us. Thank you for your time. I'm not going to keep you up too long, and I'll give it back to Amanda.
Thank you so much, Willie. It's always great to hear from you, and I'm glad that you're able to share your inspiration with others here at TOPkit Workshop 2022 and go on the adventure with us. So now I'd like to introduce our keynote, Dr. Garvey Pike. Dr. Garvey Pike leads the Center for Teaching and Learning at UNC Charlotte. His team fuels the enrollment growth at the university through online development, personalized and adaptive learning, faculty development programs, and academic technologies. Their focus is on high quality instruction in all teaching modes and models. He's one of my favorite people for his kindness as well as his wisdom. So I know you're going to enjoy Garvey's keynote titled Shaping What's Next. Welcome, Garvey.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's great to be here with everybody, and I appreciate you all inviting me here today. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's try this. Are you seeing just the slideshow, or do you see like my Zoom sidebar as well?
Just the slide. Great.
Perfect. All right. 2 years in, still asking, you know. So shaping what's next, right? And maybe you've seen the short description of what I thought it might be. And, you know, as we're rising from the ashes of the world we've left behind, what have we left behind and where are we going next? And I want to do a little storytelling today. And why do we do storytelling? And why do we have these tropes or touchstones that we can relate to? And I will start with some visual language. Some of you may recognize this. This is the Rosen Library at UCF. And you can see, like, why does it look like this? What are they doing? Same thing here, right? There's a building on my own campus at Charlotte. And what we're trying to do with this kind of architecture, we tell a story, and we speak to a past, and we link ourselves as a chapter in that story. So this is the Parthenon, the Acropolis in Athens, Greece, of course. So in leveraging this kind of visual language, we're saying, you know, look, you know, we connect to this past, we're part of it, and we're creating a chapter of our own that it'll stand the test of time. That it's, you know, if you study here, it's just like studying with Socrates or whatever whatever story you might tell. And so this is really important for us in the work that we do, because, you know, there's the work that we do, but there's also the story we tell about it. And of course, our story is multifaceted. Like I said, we know the stories of the past, but we're also adding our own chapter. And the reason we do this is we're relational beings. We tell stories to orient ourselves in our world, but also to orient our work inside of something bigger. So what has our story been over the last couple of years, certainly? And I want to go into a little bit about another story, the Great Chicago Fire. And some of you may know this history, and it may be new to some of you, but in 1837, Chicago was just a little Midwest outpost. When it was first incorporated as a city, it had 4,000 people. And by 1871, it had grown, and in just 30 years, it had grown to 300,000 inhabitants. And it was the 5th largest city in the country. And in August of 1871 was the Great Chicago Fire. Now, this is what the city looked like for the fire. And this is what it looked like during the fire. Of course, these are artist renderings. And here's another painting, and I like this one because you can see the moon, so to show you how bright the fire was. It raged for 3 days, and it destroyed a third of the city, killed 300 people and injured many more. 100,000 people were left homeless. It burned 17,000 structures. And, you know, what do you do? What do you do when something like this happens? Well, it led to a lot of great things. And things like building codes. The whole concept of building codes in the United States were pretty new. I think only one other city really had much of a building code at all, with fire codes. And the city was rebuilt rapidly to those higher standards. Sound familiar? And you can see this is the first skyscraper in the world where it was built. It's obviously this picture was taken later, but it was built on an iron frame with masonry on top of it. And that really hadn't been done before. And for those of you that know a little bit about Chicago, if you visited, it drew a lot of architects to it and still does. The architecture there is amazing with the sight lines you have on the lakefront and so forth. But within, they started the Chicago Public Library. It was a free public library, one of the first in the country. It was a fee for membership library before that. And within 10 years after the fire, the population grew to 500,000 people. And by 1890, which was less than 20 years later, it had 1 million people, and it was now the second largest city in the country. And the population doubled again before 1910. And now it has, and so they built new infrastructure. They laid the city out on a better grid system. The public transportation is still world class. All those things. They laid the groundwork on the ashes of that fire. And something that maybe a lot of people don't know is that after the fire, they just heaped up all the rubble and built right on top of it. And so the ground level, street level downtown is probably about 20 feet above where it used to be. And that's what civilizations have always done. You built one right on top of the next one. And now today, it's this enormous city of 2.7 million people with almost 9 million people in the metro area. It's got sports teams and 2 airports and beautiful parks. And it's absolutely stunning. And the economy is like $770 billion a year economy, which is actually larger than the entire country of Switzerland. So when we think of Chicago, I think, a lot of people have heard the nickname, the second city. And I think, that's supposed to mean that it's, it was for a long time, it was second to New York in size and everything else. But I think Chicagoans like to think of it as was the second city because the first one burned down. And so we tell our own story. We tell our own story that way. And I think, I can very much relate to this is that the past is behind us. And now we're building on the rubble and ashes of what might have been left behind and taking everything we've known and laying a new thing on top of it. And that's a pretty powerful thing to think about. And it's pretty incredible. So obviously, yeah, it was a big disruption. And if you remember this phrase, disruption, everyone was concerned with disruption a few years ago, maybe 2015, 2016, and disruptive change and disruptive technologies. And there was a great study about change and what change was needed in higher ed. This is in 2016. And I saw this, I saw Liz and Tony, them, they presented this at OLC conference. And it really made an impression on me. And it was about what do senior leaders at universities, colleges and universities in the United States, what do they think about online learning? And one of the questions in their survey was to better prepare for the future, American higher ed needs to, and the choices were, continue to evolve in a carefully planned manner, major transformation, and no changes needed. And then depending on where you are in your career, in your life, or in the faculty development spectrum, you could probably agree with any one of these at any given time. Probably many of us probably would go towards major transformation in a lot of areas because we see such upside and opportunity of what can be done. But the vast majority of people said to continue to evolve in a carefully planned manner. What does that mean when we carefully plan something? Well, obviously, someone's behind that. It takes a leader and leadership and many leaders to do something like this, right? That we got to plan, we have to have intentionality, we got to execute, we have to make it happen. And Tony said something, Tony Picciano, during the presentation, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that disruption is chaotic, especially to the people it affects. So let's not seek disruption, but carefully manage change. And I love that. I really love that concept. But those are our best laid plans, right? Because that was just a few years ago. It was not even, probably 2.5 years later, not even 2.5 years later, when the global pandemic hit. And that's the story we've all been living the last couple of years. So when you think of our conference theme of Arise, Empower, and Ignite, for what? And for what's next? And how do we do that? And what are some of the things that happened during COVID? And what have we learned during the last 2 years? Because I know we're all very thoughtful professionals. That meta piece of what we do and why we do it is really important. And that's just kind of the way we've been trained to think and fit things together and see how they work. And so I think the biggest change, one of the biggest changes we've seen is there's been this, well, it wasn't carefully managed, it happened overnight, was this accelerated understanding of certainly academic technology. And that was the transformation that was happening at the street level or that retail level. Like now everyone knows how to use the LMS. Everyone knows how to use Zoom. Meetings, have changed. More Zoom meetings for our work that we do in our Center for Teaching and Learning. Even though we've been back on campus in person since last July. Our faculty, they come to Zoom meetings. They don't always trudge over here. And that has nothing to do with the pandemic. It was like that before, right? So we've gained some efficiencies there. We've also seen a lot of literature, a lot of ink has been spilled about what are these changes about meetings. And we know that meetings are shorter and that kind of thing, which has been great. There was a joke early on in the pandemic, right? That I guess we're going to find out which of these meetings could have been an email after all, that kind of stuff. So I think we've had gained a lot of efficiencies, and we have seen a lot of accelerated transformation to sort of, we've reset a baseline where the campus was instead of, and I know a lot of faculty development, honestly, for years was not trying to drag people through the door, kicking, screaming to, could you please at least post your syllabus and gradebook in the LMS, that kind of stuff. Everybody knows how to use it now. And so the thought experiment would be, what if, at least on my campus, what if I told you that everyone would finally know how to use Canvas? But that was no longer a thing. And it happened. That happened really quickly, practically overnight. And I know it took a lot of work, and a lot of the people who can hear my voice right now was because of you, of why your faculty were able to do this. But if I told you, apart from such a major disruption as a global pandemic, could finally get everybody know how to use the LMS, what would that change? How would that change what we do and how we do it, right? Because now a lot of our portfolio or a lot of the things that we had been doing or trying to help faculty do, that's behind us now. And we've always wanted that higher conversation, that bigger conversation, that more elevated conversation, not just how to do things, but why would you do these? What is the pedagogical reason for teaching this way? So the conversations have absolutely changed about online learning. Everyone knows how to do it, right? And I'm not saying it's all been great, right? There's a huge difference, and we know this. There's a big difference between emergency remote teaching and intentional online learning. But there's a lot of shared things in there. The viability, is online viable? For those of you who do research, you may have done this kind of research, probably not, because we've known for a long time there is no significant difference necessarily. There's things that we can discover about online learning. But in terms of the comparison studies, I don't know, is that dead finally? Is that a change we're going to see? Are we still comparing the online version to the face-to-face version? Yes, we can compare student success. We can compare enrollments. There's all kinds of things we can compare, but the idea that we have to defend online learning, it's been around for nearly 30 years now. I think that's over. Everyone gets it now. And the kinds of conversations that faculty are having that maybe they've been resistant to it before, maybe they just, they didn't think it was good enough, whatever it might be. I don't hear that anymore. What I hear is a more nuanced personal description of what one's efficacy or is with online learning. They say, hey, look, I know it works. It's been great to get us through the pandemic, but I'm looking forward to going back to the classroom. It's just not for me, or the workload's too much, or I had it, so now they have real reasons. Well, not that they didn't have reasons before, but the reasons are more acceptable to me anyway, as an instructional designer and someone who believes in it. And so those conversations have been changing. And obviously we know the strategic importance of online learning, not just for continuity, but we see it for enrollment growth and being able to serve students in a much different way than only the on-ground can. And another conversation that we've been having on our campus, and I'm sure you have too, honestly, I've never heard so much about student needs before in my entire career. We've all been talking about it, and there's certain people whose job it is to talk about it, but how do we better serve students through this, whether it's mental health or self-care or getting them, laptops in an emergency situation when there weren't enough to go around, whatever it might be. Student needs that conversation has really, really come to the front for the entire campus in a way that is unprecedented, honestly. So like I said before, there's a new skill baseline that everyone has now, and that's pretty firmly established, but there's a new mindset around online learning. And that is a great opportunity for us. Go ahead and call us, all instructional designers. What is that changing role for us? Is the whole ecosystem of teaching and learning changing? Is professional development changing? How we communicate and engage with faculty? Like, the answer to this is yes on all these and more. Of course, our role is changing and what we can do. Ideas save the world. We're still saving the world. So I think it's important that we acknowledge the successes of the last 2 years. And you're going to have a lot of opportunity to do that over the next couple of days. Is you're going to be hearing different strategies, tactics, operational things, and leadership things, and philosophical things that people have been able to do, enact, study, learn about, know more about, shed light on. And so as you spend the next few days with your colleagues in this TOPkit experience, acknowledge that. Honor the work they've done and see yourself in that work, because you've been doing the same thing too. But now that we've saved the world, how do we build the new one? And we have everyone's attention. Like, this is our moment. It was one thing when we had their attention 2 years ago because they needed our help. But now we have an opportunity here to continue to grow and shape things, not just put out the fires and serve the needs as they come. And it goes back to that idea of carefully managed change that we talked about in the 2016 study, is that we can still manage carefully the changes that are about to happen and are happening right now. A lot of change management can feel like ready, fire, aim, right? The last 2 years has felt that way. It's that you just put something out there and then you fine tune it as you go. And that happens on a micro scale, but also on a macro scale. We're in a position now to provide thought leadership. And I know we always believed we did. And of course, that thought leadership was respected in many places, but people look around when you're talking or engaging with people about this stuff, and they're listening in a different way. Hey, I might need this information, or this is new to me, or this is interesting, because now people have lived in this to some extent in this online teaching world. The obvious thing is take your small wins, celebrate them, and build on them, and go to the next one. Communication and engagement have gotten so important. They've always been important, but now for all the hiring I've done over the last couple of years in many different roles, communication engagement is like a major part of people's role, their performance plan, and everything else. So when we're hiring, we're looking for those competencies that we always say, well, must have excellent written and oral communication skills. Well, of course, right? We want that, but what does that mean? What does that really mean to be able to communicate and engage ideas and move your ideas forward? It means developing relationships and being able to communicate clearly for different audiences and what those different audiences' needs are. And so that's become, it's like 30% of your job, I think, in a lot of ways, if you think about it. Systems thinking, that's always been in short supply. Have you noticed that? And now the complexity of our systems and how everything fits together, from student support services to on-campus, to online, to infrastructure, to everything else. The university has always been a complex system. And I think it really got, battle tested there over the last couple of years. And if you are in a place, to see something, then say something, because chances are other people don't see the problem, or if they have seen the problem, they don't know their way out of it. And you can help, right? We can help with that. So we're doing that all the time. My colleague Lynn Wall and I, she's in the office next to mine, but we talked about this as sort of like the bull in the china shop, because we felt like for first a little while, we felt like we didn't want people to think we're telling them how to do their jobs. Like, hey, these students need help over here, or whatever it might be. But like, they need the help. Like, we need to pull together as a team. So if we see something, we're going to say something. But there's another leadership dimension beyond all of these things. And all of these things are important and true and will be hugely important as we move forward. But I wanted to tell about that other dimension. I want to tell kind of a personal story here. This is the building I work in. See if you can see the girl in the green jacket. That's her head is right by my office. In fact, if this were a live shot, I could like wave out the window. This is the Kennedy building. It's the oldest building on our campus. At one time, it was the only building, and there was a barn. So I guess, maybe there are two buildings. It's this and a barn from the farmland that had been purchased or donated for our university. And it was in the spring of 2019. It was maybe 7 months before, about 10 months before COVID. And this is our Center for Teaching and Learning, and they redesigned this whole floor of the building for us. It was kind of a beautiful space. And here's a map of our floor, and you can see offices are on the right, and the big space on the left is a huge active learning classroom. This was a state-of-the-art classroom. We researched, we presented on it. It was in super high demand. It was on the pictures of this thing were everywhere. Anytime, we'd look up anything about active learning or classrooms or Charlotte or, campus tours were coming here. This was just such a great space for students to engage in it. And it was really great. And these almost look like stock photos, but we just popped in there one day during class. Students loved it. They really collaborated quite a bit. We could do all kinds of different things in here. So this was kind of a big deal. We hosted all of our events in here, and it's just mere steps from where I'm sitting now. And it was the last day of classes in spring of 2019. It was April 30th. And there was one class in session. It was a little bit after 5 p.m. So most of my team had left or just left. And coming through the back of the building and into that large classroom was an active shooter. And he came in and he started shooting, and he shot 6 people and killed 2. And I have a lot to say about this and a whole story to tell of what this was like. But when you talk about a disruption, right? This is not something you could plan for. This is not something you would ever welcome. But it really clarifies things for what our jobs are, or what my job is, and what I'm called to do in this world in relation to that. And so, and we shut campus down for a few days, and finals became optional, and we weren't even able to come back in our building. I still walk past this spot like 20 times a day. And it, changed a lot of things. And it was a really, really difficult time. And it really laid bare, what are these other dimensions of leadership? It's not just project management and ID skills, but, some of these things are obvious, right? First, we check in with everyone, we go into crisis mode, we work the phone tree and make sure everyone is okay. And then, then I field well wishes because it hits the news, right? So I got to field well wishes from everyone I've ever known, which is great, right? But it's exhausting. And then what are the operational needs, right? We got to update our website. We had to, it was a continuity event, right? Because campus was closed, whether it's a snowstorm or pandemic, hurricane, those have different implications than a shooter, right? What is happening during, the academic calendar? How do we deal with all these things? But really, it's a different kind of leadership. And so, we all have to actively lead, like this idea that no one's coming to save you. Like you're it, that's it, right? And then you're going to hopefully try to save as many people as you can around you. And whatever that might mean, right? It could mean in the moment, or it could mean in the months and years afterwards. So this dimension of leadership, of really, ministering to a team's needs in a different way than, can you help me order new software, or can you approve this or that? It's a whole different value. So what is your real value, right? What is your real value? Your real value is you, and what you bring to the table. It's not the systems thinking and the technical expertise, the project management, all the things that I just spent a few minutes lauding and how important those things are and how they're in short supply and high demand. It's those relationships you have with people, the resilience you can bring and build in others, that strength that you can show, that you can be that rock or that oak tree, whatever it might be, for the people around you. And it's that shepherding role that we have to do. And it's not just the active shooter, situation either. I mean, think about where we've been over the last couple of years with our coworkers, with our team, with our faculty clients, with students. We've been shepherding people through those darkest places. And something that we've been really mindful of over the last 2 years, more so than ever before, is to show one another. And I don't mean just on the team, I mean everybody, even the angry client who calls up and is upset that new quizzing in Canvas doesn't work the way she wants it to work. And, to show everybody patience, to show everyone grace and kindness and gentleness. Those don't cost anything, but they're of enormous value. And there's much about how we can help someone through this is how we can help ourselves through this. Is that if we are patient and gracious and kind and gentle, those aren't just a face or mask we're putting on, but those are temperament and character traits that we want to carry through into our work. And that's the kind of thing that we want to be known for. There's a lot of people who could do what we do, right? There's hundreds of people that can do what I do or what you could do. But the way that we do it is what's different about us. And so being able to kind of put this together is that your value is you. It's not just your work output. You're not just a balance on a ledger sheet. So I would say the best thing I could say, or the best encouragement I could give, is to invest in people and pour into them and give of yourself. So you think of this idea of really throwing yourself into your work. Like, what does that mean? I think people think it means like working 60 hours, and we all did that, right? But that's not what it means. What it means is, who are you truly, and are you bringing that self to your work? And that's what your value is. That's your value add. It's not just the technical skills you have. So how do we shape what's next? And what does that really even mean? I love this quote from Emerson. The past has baked my loaf, and in the strength of its bread, I break up the old oven. Right? So whether that's rebuilding on top of the Chicago fire, rebuilding morale, and even the ability to walk into our building after an active shooter, or trying to put back the world and make it a better place than the one we left behind over the last 2 years, our story is still being written. We are all members of the field of instructional design and faculty development, and that change and evolution, growth of digital learning. We're part of that. We we write up our stories in there, and we are part of that story and our role in that. But where's your plot in that field, right? Where's your piece of that field? On a smaller level, what are you affecting? Not just projects, initiatives, but what else are you affecting, and who are you affecting? And so the story you tell is yours, and so it's time to shape what's next for you and those around you, right? I know that you're all doing great work where you are to shape what's next at your colleges and universities and whatever context you're in, and just keep bringing yourself and keep bringing that in there, and shape, with patience and grace. We can keep moving forward and keep looking at the world around us and just making it better, and giving encouragement to others wherever we can. And it really, really makes a huge difference in our work. It'll pay off in many ways. And, long after our work is gone, it's those relationships and people that you know and have worked with and have helped. That's what will remain. You won't remember what it was that maybe all the projects you worked on, but you'll remember what it was like to work with that person. And so I'd like to be remembered as, someone that they enjoyed spending their time with, and that we did great things together. So I hope the same for you. So thank you very much. And if anyone wants to contact me, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Garvey. It's really awesome to hear your story of how you kind of regained your footing after the active shooter at Charlotte, as well as your encouragement for us to be shepherds in our work and continue to build those relationships and offer up the strength we have inside for carefully managed change. So I would like to pause and give everyone a moment to ask a question if they have one on their minds in the chat, or simply raise your hand and I'll call on you to unmute your mic. I don't see any hands raised, but I'm looking in the chat. I do see some thanks. And plenty of comments, Garvey. Your keynote definitely resonated with many people here, as you can see.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I'm just curious if anyone has a question or any thoughts they'd like to share with Garvey before he parts.
There is a hand raised. Eli.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, Eli, thank you.
Hey, Garvey.
Hi.
We could talk offline, but I think for the benefit of the group. So what reaction would you have to not just faculty, but also administration in terms of, oh, we are going back to the way it was. We have to get back to pre-COVID for many different reasons, enrollment, student satisfaction, which affects the bottom line of tuition dollars. You have any advice or any thoughts about how to perhaps counter that kind of dialogue in some way?
That's not an easy question to answer, but I will say, I mean, off the top of my head, what I would believe is that I think people are, when they say that, they're expressing a desire for something that they don't realize is gone. So the idea that there's something to go back to, and that it was worth going back to, and that we're able to even go back to it, honestly, is a little crazy. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that, I'm not trying to call him crazy, I'm sorry about that. What I mean is, like, it doesn't necessarily have to go the way that, all the dreamers think it should go either, right? So I think everything will be carefully managed and move forward. But the idea, I don't know if I have a great answer for you, Eli, because I just don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to go back to where we've been.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So sometimes I think we have to give those people enough space to kind of work it out for themselves. And maybe if you can have, some like one-on-one relational time with them and try to uncover like, what is it about previous that you like, or that were a pain point for you, or, whatever it might be, and see if you can uncover, kind of meet them where they are, because it might have more to do with where they are in their journey than them trying to helm the ship back to, a place that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, true. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I see Sarah has a question. She asked, how have your university worked towards healing after that awful day?
Well, that's not an easy answer either. We had to do the things in the moment, right? The coming together, and certainly there's employee assistance programs and the things that happen like closer to it. But we're building a memorial outside of our building, and there'll be a memorial inside our building. So, and we do have, it's now an annual day every year of our Niners Unite. And so we are kind of commemorating it in that regard to honor those that lost their lives. And what's interesting about something like this, certainly it affects everybody differently. But for faculty and staff, like, we stay, right? Like, students get to graduate. That's not true of just shootings. I mean, of course it affects them too, but it's been hard for those of us in this building. It's been hard because they haven't renovated, they haven't done anything.
Mm-hmm. We are right at 1:50, so I want to honor everyone's time, but also I see more questions in the chat, and I don't know, Garvey, do you mind staying for just a few more minutes through the break to answer questions and invite everyone to stay if they'd like?
Of course, yeah. If anyone wants to go, they can go. If anyone wants to stay, I'm happy to answer more questions.
Okay, thank you. I see that Anthony had a question. Anthony, you're welcome to just unmute your mic if you'd like, or I can ask it for you. Let me give you a moment.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind unmuting my mic. It's good to meet you, Garvey. Thank you for that inspiring talk. I think that from my experience over the last couple of years, I've seen that this kind of swing towards, it's really different than when we were younger and in college, right? In those days, there was this idea of the tough instructor and like holding you accountable, and the deadline is the deadline. And so I've seen a shift over the last 25 years or so towards more understanding and flexibility and so on. Especially that was sort of accelerated during the pandemic, where students were offered pass fail and so on options. And I think that's obviously important and necessary, but I'm also starting to get concerned that the world isn't always as forgiving on the outside of the university, and students might not be necessarily prepared for an environment where there might be more, requirements for due dates and accountability and so on. And so I'm just wondering, do we ever go too far in being sort of overly forgiving and overly flexible? And so maintaining that kind of balance between the nurturing and supportive, but also the competitive and the performance outcome focus as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great question. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I know a lot of people agree with you, and to a large extent, it's not that I disagree with you. I think that maybe the line is drawn at a different place for each person, and maybe the line is drawn for everybody a little differently than it was before. And what I mean is, I think a lot of people made certain requirements, due dates or whatever it might be, like their hill to die on, when it really didn't need to be. It's got to be due at midnight. But are you grading them at 12:01?
Right.
Can it be due at 9 the next morning? Like, is there a business need that you have to make this due when you make it due? So I think we have to be. I think honestly, I think it's a great opportunity for us to have better conversations about like what are authentic outcomes and authentic assessments, and I don't mean just generically, but I mean what level of authenticity does me holding you to this standard in this case have to the quote unquote real world or whatever. I don't know, in my work, and I do fairly high level work, there's some deadlines I can miss and some that I can't. And so I think that's true. So I think if we have better or closer fidelity with what the quote unquote real world really is, but no, I agree with you. I think some things have loosened up maybe too much, but I would love to have a conversation. I'd love for all classes to be pass fail, period. Let's get rid of grading, because it really, and then let's go towards mastery. Because if we were going towards mastery learning, then you either mastered it or you haven't, and you stick with it until you have. Now I'm getting into like the artificial construct.
That's a great point. And I agree with you. I agree with you, Garvey. I mean, I've also been, I consider myself quite flexible and quite, explain to students the why and so on for many years. And then sort of now I'm just starting to think like, maybe it's going too far though. Like, cause I've had students that are sort of, I feel some of them are sort of taking advantage of it now. They've like kind of get used to the idea of being able to turn things in late, or not necessarily, go for the gold in a course. Sometimes they're going just for the kind of minimum bar a little bit more. I feel like a little bit these days, not all of them. And I teach a pass fail course that just wrapped up yesterday. And in fact, for the first time ever, one student reached out to me. He was like, where do I rank in the class? I know it's a pass fail class, but where do I rank? Where would my score rank? And I was like, wow, that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that. And so, there are still those out there that are kind of, they're going for that gold. They're going for that A+. They want to be better than everyone else and so on. So that does motivate some people as well. So yeah, I don't want to dominate the discussion. So I'll stop there and let others join in.
I will say, two of the best classes I ever had. One was 9th grade biology. Another one was a master's program. They told us right up front, here's everything you need to do to get a B. And if you do all these things, you'll get a B. But if you want an A, here's all the extra stuff you can do too. So now it's almost like a mastery learning, right? Here's the level you get for this. Here's the level you get for that. So I think there's ways that we can build that into people. There's one professor on my campus. Actually, my daughter is a student here, and she took his class, and he wrote something really great to his students. And it was an online class at the beginning, and he said that he had like a John Lennon quote in there, and I don't remember what it was, but he said like, look, basically stuff happens. This has been a trying time for everyone with family situations and everything else. He's like, so for maximum flexibility, all I ask is that if you can't hit a deadline, you can't do something that I've asked you to do, just let me know. And like, boom, that to me has the highest fidelity to my real world, setting of my job possible. Is that if I can't make something happen that I said I could, I come clean and we figure out a new way forward together. And I thought that was really, really gracious on his part. And, so how else can we do that in our teaching?
Thank you, Garvey. That's always the next question, right? How else can we do that in our teaching and learning to bring forward high quality work? So we have about 3 minutes for the next session and time to squeeze in just one tiny question or last comments. Okay. Well, Garvey, thank you so much. It's been a joy having you as our keynote, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, there's so many excellent sessions. One coming up is fantastic. I'm going to turn it over to Sue to kind of get us started. From reaction plans to action plans, this was one of the best in track sessions. So you'll definitely want to stay and hear Joe Lloyd, Tina Calandrino, Trudy Trail Constant, and Amy Sugar. going to be great. Up, Sue, you're going to have to unmute so we can hear you.
Thank you. Welcome, presentation group. Hopefully at this point you see that you have co-host access. You should be able to share your screen and start your presentation. Is there anything in particular that you need from me? I know it's a group, but do you need me to monitor chat or anything for you?
That would always be helpful for us, Sue, but with 4 of us, we may take over, and I'm going to write you privately here in a moment.
Okay, and just a reminder that we will start the recording as well when you are ready to kick off. All right, it is 2 o'clock, so I would like to welcome everyone. My name is Sue Bauer, and I am the moderator in this room, so I will try to assist both the presentation group and also our participants in the chat area. We do ask the participants go ahead and mute your mics for the kickoff. I'm sure that there'll be some collaboration and you're requested to talk at certain times, but for kickoff, please mute your mic. Again, just a reminder that we will be recording this session. At this time, I would like to introduce our wonderful presentation group from the University of Central Florida. We have Joe, Tina, Amy, and Trudy with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and start the record button and just welcome and take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. As Sue said, my name is Joe Lloyd. I'm an instructional designer here at UCF, and I have a few of my colleagues who are presenting with us. And today we're going to be talking about a response plan that we came up with during COVID times to facilitate a faculty training that would help the faculty be able to transition to an online development. And so we're going to go through the 4 different phases of the plan that we came up with, and those are explore, plan, build, launch, and finally evaluate. So during this presentation, we're going to give you a little bit of a background and introduction to the model, an overview for the model in the different phases, and then talk about some of the challenges and lessons learned. We will have a breakout room activity, and then finally, a wrap up and a question and answer session with anything that you may have at the end. So, all right. Sorry, 2 minutes. Okay. So an overview of this plan. Basically, we adapted this from models for, rapid project management, including some agile and ADDIE methodologies. And like I said, the phases of the plan is we started with exploring the issue, then we were planning what we wanted to do, and then we actually built it out. Then we launched the platform, and then finally at the end we evaluated what we had done and made any changes or anything we needed to do. So some of the benefits is that this model was very flexible. It can be applied basically to any faculty development course or instructional course. It is very scalable. It isn't something you're not limited by the size of your ID team. It is something that we did at UCF, being a very large institution, but it definitely, if you're not nearly as large as we are, it can definitely be scaled down if you have a smaller either ID team or faculty that you're implementing this plan with. The duration of the implementation can also be scaled to fit whatever your needs or your constraints are, and the number of deliverables themselves can be scaled as necessary. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tina Calandrino. And at the time, I was the program coordinator for IDL 6543, which was our instructional design training for faculty members. It was a 10-week course, and we had to shift in the emergency to finish up a couple of weeks, 5 weeks actually, of this. So we had to really start looking out a month ahead. How are we going to do all of this? And we realized that the first step of the phase was really to just identify and explore the issue and what was the opportunity and determine the potential solution. In the case of UCF, our issue was we had to prepare a large amount of faculty. There was no way we were going to get 500-800 people through a 10-week program in the middle of all this disruption, in the middle of trying to train them immediately too. So we've just laid this out for you, identifying the need or the issue, but also who are the stakeholders? Was it just the teachers? Is it just the faculty? Is it just the students? Who is it? You also want to make sure that you're exploring existing resources. We were very lucky that we had something in place. We also utilized TOPkit and downloaded resources from that. So what do you currently have that exists? Does it meet the needs? Does it not meet the needs? What were your potential solutions going to be? How are you going to use, adapt, or create new in the time that you have? So what we're looking at right now, Joe will go to the next slide for me, please, is we also had to look at potential barriers. So in our case, with that large group that we wanted, and we really we're only used to doing 40 to 45 people in 10 weeks. We were matched one-on-one with instructional IDs. We required face-to-face sessions. We required a lot of work. So we quickly realized we had to brand a whole new training, and we needed just that large capacity and a short window. Now we're having to look at redesign, but at the time, we had to very quickly and very efficiently design, develop, and implement a brand new faculty training program. And IDL is very well known in the industry, and many people base things off of this, including our instructors who know and wear it as a badge. So how are we going to train other instructors to try and compete at that level that we were used to giving our faculty? Well, the first step is we really sat down with the instructional IDs, and we formed a core team and a support team to talk about and identify the issues. We did this with our vice provost, Tom Kavanaugh, and the head of the ID team, and we really wanted to see what were the issues or the opportunities to determine our potential solution. So our solution really was to rebrand and to talk about something called Essentials in Online Teaching and brand it as a new face, a 5-week course. So Joe, again, I'm going to ask you to forward the slide one more time for me. So once we did all of those things, we talked about the support, we spent time on that. We then went to, how are we going to look at the whole picture? How are we going to plan it? How many people needed to be involved in the planning? What were our needs? What was the support? Could we leverage? What could we take from what we had existing in IDL 6543? What could we take from TOPkit? What could we do with everything and put it in almost immediately? Obviously, we assembled a team. We leveraged people from outside of the team to make sure that we had templates that were going, disability and accessibility accommodations that were going to be needed, everything like creating development courses. We really had to think more globally than just the instructional design team, because for UCF, EOT, or Essentials in Online Training, was really going to be a brand new stage and a brand new show. The other really big thing that I want to spend a moment on is a realistic timeline. Well, now we have time that we can think about it, but at the time it was more of a reaction, but we did not want it to be a jerk reaction. We wanted to make sure this was something that was going to be realistic for the faculty, helpful for the faculty, and sustainable for the ID team to make sure that it was scalable for us. We then had to go to our board of directors, we had to go to our vice provost, we had to go to everybody and get those stakeholder buy-ins in what we were doing also. So the next stage, we can go to the next slide, Joe, was really developing that proposed solution. So using the model we just outlined, we were able to create that brand new faculty program. We decided that we needed 4 weeks to get it done. We were able to leverage that model within the courses within Canvas. The EOT courses actually had a guide for the faculty, a template. So they had to do a similar process as IDL 6543 and a similar process as to what we were doing. They were going to plan, they were going to build and develop, and they were also going to talk about next steps. How are they going to implement it and then sustain and evaluate it? Because at the time, we didn't know how long this was going to last. We also had to make sure our deliverables became their deliverables. How were we doing what was best for our students? And we also did that by incorporating the UCF quality review standards. We are going to give you all links to all of these things and all of these deliverables and all of these plannings here within the course too. So one of the things we made sure that they did is they had to have a course blueprint. What were they doing? What were they thinking as? I'm a former writing instructor. Everybody has to have an outline. They also made sure they all had a course homepage they could fill in, a course syllabus, making sure that it had everything there, a getting started module. And then they had to create 3 weeks of instructional content within that 5 weeks. But how are we going to make sure that they were doing it? How could we, just as the ID team, help to process that? Well, that was other things that we decided on. What was the essential of this? Well, so the key phase here was that strict timeline for us. We had to get these people trained before the students came back, before we had to continue online. So at UCF, we focused on the absolute essentials the faculty would need to quickly develop that online instruction. We taught them how to use Zoom. We taught them how to use Canvas. Some of them had only ever graded in Canvas or put up a syllabus. So we made sure that they were following along with that quality guideline at all times. It was a cross balance there. Our team then also brought up extra issues and potential solutions. We made sure to identify them, and we made sure that the planning team talked about it so that at the next stage, that we could make sure that the 8 instructional designers that really just did nothing but focus on designing, developing, and implementing that program would have all the tools that they need. And that team actually got further subdivided into sub-teams. And they were doing work concurrently, simultaneously, and we were leveraging all the people. Video, how are we going to have people come in and talk to them and give them all the help they need? So the smaller sub-teams were logistics, content and assessment, theming and templates, quality review, and course management. Because remember, we were branding this new. We wanted it to be accepted on a higher level than just shoving faculty through some kind of program. It needed to be something that they would want to do, be excited to do, and be sustainable to do. It was only at that point in time when we had all of these done with exploring and planning that we handed it off to Trudy Trail Constant and her design team to start the build. Trudy, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
And actually, I'm going to jump in. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Sugar, instructional designer at UCF. And so next we're moving to the build phase. This is the fun part. This is the development phase when you actually get to put all of that planning into action. So as Tina mentioned, there was sometimes there's a very tight timeline. There's not a lot of time to build and develop a course. And so one of the most important things is to remain focused on the goals and also on the essential items. This is to help make sure you're preventing scope creep, just make sure you'll be able to meet that timeline that you have. And again, make sure everything is in alignment with the goals and the purpose. You also heard Tina mention leveraging existing resources. This is another really important thing to consider as you're building. So only creating new items as needed. Think about reusing any content or finding content, TOPkit. Consider adopting or adapting open educational resources. The wonderful thing is we know there are many colleagues out there who are creating great stuff and they're licensing it with a Creative Commons license. So why reinvent the wheel, right? Look for what's already existing, and that's a big time saver. The next thing is to be proactive and think about accessibility and universal design for learning upfront. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about it as you build, and then as you continue building and complete building, right? Think about learner variability and access. So that way it's not an afterthought. And I think everyone here understands that when you're reactive to this, it takes a lot of time, a lot more time to go back and address these items. And then the fourth consideration is just to always consider quality. And again, for alignment with quality standards you might have at your institution, but also continuously checking quality during the development phase. So Joe will go to the next one just to share the UCF use case example. So as this Essentials of Online Teaching course was being developed, right, that was the process that was used. So building out the solution and continuously conducting those quality assessment checks to make sure there was alignment there. We at UCF have standards for quality online course design. I think Tina mentioned that. So the course was developed very closely in alignment with those. And we also, there were templates, template course provided for faculty. Again, just giving them access to that, helping to make it a little bit easier for them considering the tight timeline. And then checking accessibility throughout was also key. And so the our You Do It tool, Universal Design Online Content Inspection tool that was developed at UCF was utilized as well to assess the accessibility of the course. So now I'm going to hand it to Trudy, who will talk about launch.
Thank you, Amy. So now we're in the launch phase. So this is really the part where you get to see the hard work come together because you've now built it. So in order for a successful launch, you really just want to take a look at any policies or processes that need to be impacted. So that might mean you create or revise existing processes. So keep in mind that through proper planning in the planning phase, that any barriers to launch probably would have been identified at that point. But if additional barriers arise during this launch phase, then you would need to address them at this time. Once the new processes have been identified and updated, it's then important to communicate those changes to any key stakeholders. And that might mean new training for new stakeholders that are involved in the project. And then finally, you get to deploy the final solution. So in the case of a faculty development course, this would mean the course going live and being available for faculty participation. So at UCF, one of the major processes that we had that needed to be updated was that the role of the ID, as Tina mentioned, with our existing flagship faculty development course, IDs are expected to work one-on-one with faculty participants through a series of in-person consultations. However, because of the number of expected enrollment that we now had at that time, with hundreds of faculty needing to go through, this would not have been possible. So what we did was we created a new process. So we removed the one-on-one ID consultations, and we actually recruited veteran online teaching faculty to teach as graders and reviewers. And we implemented a rubric that allowed the participants to still get personalized feedback, because we thought it was important, even though they didn't have that one-on-one ID consultation, that they still get personalized feedback on what they were developing in the course. We then had to train IDs and the faculty reviewers in this new process and guide them through how to leave feedback. One of the things that was instrumental in helping us to do that was we created what was called the EOT, Essentials of Online Teaching companion course. And that's where we house a lot of these training resources. And finally, the solution was deployed in the summer of 2020. Excuse the typo on that screen. And since then, we've had an enrollment of about 300 faculty. And the design team that developed the solution actually monitored the course the first few times it was offered. So the final step in the process is just to evaluate the proposed solution to really see if what has been implemented actually works to meet the original issue or need. So of course, this is critical with any new developed product or solution. And it's always important to get critical stakeholder feedback as well. So depending on your specific use case, the method by which you use might be different to evaluate your solution, but the most common evaluation methods are typically surveys and focus groups. However, the results from the evaluation should really drive any future updates that are made to your solution in the future, and really just identify those changes that might be made in the short term versus the long term. Next slide, Joe. Yeah. So for our project, we gathered feedback both during and at the end of the program. During the program, we gathered feedback from the participants, the IDs, very informally via email, through course communications, ID team meetings. But once the program ended, we sent out targeted evaluation surveys to the participants, the instructional designers, and even those faculty reviewers that we recruited to get more formal feedback. Based on the results of that, those evaluation methods, we were able to make plans and actually implement solutions to future offerings of the course. So in summary, I know that we went through that pretty quickly, but the model that we use for this new faculty development course that helped us to address the need to prepare a large amount of faculty was to just really go through exploring. So really take a look at the issue in more detail, explore resources to really determine, does something new need to be built? Does something existing can work? To propose the solution, really explore those barriers that might pop up and try to have a plan in place of how to address them. Then you enter the planning phase, which is when you start to think of a team, try to come up with a plan for the build and launch, and get key stakeholder feedback. Once you get that, you focus in on the build. So you focus on the essentials during your first, what's your minimum viable project that you need, leverage any existing resources, and of course, along the way, keep checking for quality, accessibility as well. Once you hit that launch phase, be sure to update any policies and processes and train any stakeholders that are involved with that, and deploy the solution. Finally, end in with evaluating that solution and making revisions or improvements for future iterations. So by focusing on this inventive or just rapid design method that we had, because we were able to design this new course using this methodology in just about 4 short weeks, which for most of us that design faculty development courses, that can take months to a year. It really helped us to increase our faculty throughput by about 300% in a single semester, because the first time we offered the course, it had an enrollment of almost 350, where previous faculty development could only support about 40. So this is about 3 times, we trained about 3 times more people in 1 semester than we would have in multiple years with the previous structure. So this new online faculty development solution really allowed UCF to better be able to prepare a large amount of faculty that were new to online. And we can then employ this again, should we ever need to prepare another large amount of faculty and for future disruptions as well. So in the next part of the presentation, what we're going to do, we're just going to break up into smaller breakout rooms. So there's a breakout room for explore and plan, build, launch, and evaluate. And we'll just dive a little bit deeper through just some shared conversations into those different areas. So feel free to join one of the breakout rooms. Again, breakout room will be breakout room 1 will be focused on explore and plan, 2 on build, and 3 on launch and evaluate. There's also a bit.ly link there to some resources that we will be using in those breakout rooms. We will also be able to share that with you in there as well. So we'll take about 15 minutes to join the breakout rooms, take about 15 minutes in those breakout rooms, then we'll come back together for a wrap-up session. I believe they are open. So if you all want to go ahead and join the breakout rooms, feel free.
Hey, Trudy, do you have a time you want me to stop them and send them back?
It'll be 15 minutes. I'm keeping track.
Okay, let me know and then I'll close all rooms so they come back.
Okay. I have the breakout room thing open too, and
Good.
I'll stay here for anybody that has issues getting into a room, so I can assign them to specific rooms.
Okay, I'll stay quiet. Just let me know if you need me.
Will do. So yeah, anybody that is still here, if you would like to join one of the 3 breakout rooms, either explore and plan as the first room, build as the second, and launch and evaluate as the third room. If you have any problems getting into a specific room, let me know and I can assign you to one. But they should all be open for everybody to join.
I think we need to access as hosts in the breakout room as we're not able to share a screen there.
I think Amanda's the only one that can do that.
Okay. If not, we'll work around it.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll message her real quick.
That is correct. I will try to go find Amanda. All right, I have a note to Amanda.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm gonna eat some grapes.
I'm gonna make it to you. Mom,
I'm in a meeting right now. What do you want?
me and Daddy heard the la 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 great.
Oh, that's awesome. Sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, that's cracking me up, Sue. It's like, is somebody singing a song about grapes and it's not my turn?
My daughter just walked in from school.
That's amazing. I love it.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Can I be of assistance?
Um, Amy and Trudy were both saying that they cannot share in their breakout rooms because they are not co-hosts.
Okay, let me go do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think Tina's okay.
Yes, she already was a co-host.
Trying to find.
So we might want to check that for all the other presenters, although I don't know if they're doing breakout rooms or not.
Well, and I also, because I was in here as co-host, so it wasn't letting me go in and make them co-host, but I even logged back out and I logged back in with the iLab. So at that point, I thought I would have had ability to do so, and I still didn't.
Yeah.
Because it's iLab Zoom account, so I assumed I would be hosting that role, and
Right.
I was.
Yeah, the only thing it let me do with co-host is share the screen, and then I could create the breakout rooms and then assign people to them
Okay.
if I needed to.
So I'm no longer the host. So Sue, you have to go into the breakout rooms.
Okay.
And make them co-hosts. Sorry about that.
Weird.
I saw Trudy was in the last room.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Amy's in the second one.
Oh, Zoom is so tricky, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And we're 2 years in and still figuring everything out.
I know. You know, I do wonder if we could just put all the presenters in as alt hosts. For a conversation for another time, but yeah.
Hi, Amanda. I just wanted to let you know, even if I go into the breakout rooms, I am not able to assign a co-host.
So weird.
Yeah.
So then who has that ability to do that?
Well, I know Amanda had it earlier because she let us all in as co-hosts.
Right. Very strange.
Maybe make me a host, Sue, and maybe we'll try it that way. I don't know why I would be able to, though.
I'm not even seeing you on the list of participants.
Yeah.
No, it's tricky.
I can't change anybody's role. It says I'm a co-host, but it won't let me change anybody's role.
Okay, you're now host.
Thank you.
Yep. You have about 10 minutes left too. Just I don't know how much time you wanted them back in the whole group.
Okay. Yeah, there's 3 minutes left in my timer, so.
Okie.
No, I cannot.
Yeah, it's very strange.
All right, let me do some troubleshooting.
Also, now that I am no longer host, it's not letting me close the breakout rooms either, Joe.
Weird. Well, I still have the close all rooms button. So in 2 minutes, I will hit that button and force everybody back.
Great.
That's strange. And I just hit the broadcast message to everybody to say 3 minutes left. And then Amy just messaged me and said, how much time do we have left? So apparently nobody saw that broadcast message. Cool. So I wonder if
This is so weird. What is going on?
Yeah, I have no idea. So I wonder if I actually hit the close all rooms button in a minute, will that work?
We shall see.
And also, I just realized it looks like we're live streaming right now too. Just